The Amazing World of Gumball has 6 seasons and a total of 240 episodes, but in this video we'll be discussing a select few that are deemed to be the best. Starting with Season 3 Episode 20, which is titled The Shell, which follows Gumball and Penny doing a play at school together and Penny improvising the two doing a kiss scene to shock the audience. But instead of kissing her, Gumball just slams his head into her. And this then creates a crack, which she then begins to panic over as a yellow light shines through her shell. And Gumball tries to ask her about it, but she avoids it. But Darwin persists, and then she says that it's apparently the real her. But they then head to Penny's house to tell her dad, which goes just about as bad as you would expect it to, with her dad grounding her and saying that she can't be herself because it's dangerous and saying that he knows what's best for her. But Gumball stands on business and actually yells back at him, which of course results in him to get kicked out. And so Gumball goes home crying before Penny shows up at his window and says that her dad is making her move to another school. Gumball then says that that's messed up and that she should come out of her shell, but Penny says that he might not like the real her. But Gumball of course says that that's not true and that if she comes out, they'll deal with whatever comes next together. And Penny then breaks out of her shell, revealing a golden fairy, but as Gumball is absolutely shocked by her appearance, she takes it as he didn't know what to say because she was a monster. And so with that, she shapeshifts into a monster and runs away. But Gumball chases her, and Penny's dad then shows up and calls his own daughter a freak, a pig, and a monster. And Gumball then yells at him to shut up and to think about what he just said and continues to chase her. He is really standing on an unnecessary amount of business in this episode. Gumball then finds Penny and tells her that he was trying to protect her, and then she finally sees that he doesn't see her how these other people do or might. And Gumball then kisses her just to make the point even clearer, as she shapeshifts back into her normal self, which then causes Richard to cry, and I can't even blame him. This episode gives such a good message about being yourself. The whole coming out of your shell concept is so good, and Gumball's persistence to make her believe that she wasn't a monster and that he really would love her no matter what was beautiful. But moving on to the next episode, Season 4 Episode 14, titled The Romantic, which is once again another Penny and Gumball episode. Gumball is chatting with Penny on his PC and overreacts as she only sends him one heart eye emoji rather than the 3 that he normally receives, and so he sends her on a quest to find multiple clues, each one almost killing her, eventually finding herself cornered by animals in the forest where her and Gumball first kiss, where Gumball then jumps down to save her, but when he tells her that everything that he just put her through was only because she used one emoji instead of 3, she transformed into an angry beast and easily was able to take out the monsters and escape, but still was nonetheless angry with Gumball and tells him that he needs to quit with these big gestures. But of course, right as she says this, he already had Darwin prepare fireworks for her that said that he loves her, in which she responds with a sigh and a smile. She can't not appreciate his effort to show her that he truly does love her despite everything, which was really sweet. Now, we actually have a two-parter, being Season 4 Episode 20 and 21, titled The Origins Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 starting with this first-person shot of Nicole as Gumball just absolutely destroys their house. But as she goes into Gumball's room, we see that Gumball is a child, showing that this episode would be in the past. And we then see that Gumball's energy is off the charts, and Nicole and Richard can't really raise him on their own. So they come up with the idea to get him a pet. So they then get him a goldfish, which seems to do the trick. And then when they ask what he's gonna name it, of course he names it Darwin. And then Richard and Nicole realize they can finally relax and go to sleep. But they then wake up to Gumball making alarm sounds and then saying that Darwin is dead. And so Richard flushes it down the toilet and gets a new goldfish, and thus Darwin 2 is born. But he does not last very long. So they then buy another goldfish, but then he's killed before even getting back to the house. They then get about 4 more fish, but all of them of course end up dead. And as Richard goes to the store to buy another one, Larry says that there aren't any more. And as Richard contemplates on what he's gonna tell Gumball, a guy brings Richard into his van and asks him what he seeks, before Richard stumbles upon a goldfish bowl, which of course has the real Darwin. And after buying it, he says to be careful because that fish is more special than it seems. And as Gumball and Darwin first meet, Gumball quickly realizes that this fish is different, as Darwin starts copying him, and then when he touches him, this happens. Gumball then tells him his name, and then Darwin repeats it, showing that this fish can also talk. And of course, Gumball, being excited, wants to show his parents, but also wanting to surprise them, tells Darwin to basically play dead. But Richard then comes in thinking that he's actually dead. Nicole then tries to tell Gumball the truth, but Gumball then shows that he actually kind of knew all along, as he says that they died and Richard flushed them down the toilet, but that it's fine because this fish hasn't stopped moving. But then as he remembers that he told him to stop moving, he starts panicking, realizing that his dad is gonna flush him down the toilet. But he then runs in and saves Darwin, and then the family goes to take a picture, and Darwin says cheese, of course scaring Nicole and Richard, causing Darwin to fly into the toilet and of course flush himself, ending the episode with a to be continued, bringing us to the Origins Part 2, picking up right where we left off, with Darwin now lost in the ocean, not knowing where he is. He then has some fish bring him to land, but then of course being in the air, he stops being able to breathe. But then we go into Darwin's heart and transition back to Gumball, who then tells his parents that he believes that Darwin will come back, and somehow this message reaches Darwin and then gives him the ability to breathe on land. And so Darwin begins the treacherous journey back to Gumball's while singing one of the most iconic songs in the whole series. But eventually the journey gets really hard and Darwin basically dies. But Gumball then says that if he were there for Darwin, he would kick him in the butt. And we then transition back to Darwin, who once again somehow gets this message and then just grows legs and kicks himself. But using these, Darwin is actually able to make it back to Elmore. But as he asks people in town where Gumball lives, of course he just scares the shit out of them. And so when Darwin finally finds Gumball, pest control comes and shoots him and puts him in a cage with a bunch of other animals. We then see Gumball trying to put up posters for people to find Darwin, but then as the wind blows them away, he starts crying and then gives up, feeling like they'll never find him anyway, which was really sad. And the fact that Darwin also felt this made it even sadder. But Darwin then escaped the van, but right as he ran up to the family, they were already in the car on the way to go to the store to replace him. And Darwin then runs after the car begging to not be replaced. But then as they arrive at the store, Darwin looks through the window as Gumball is holding another fish in his hands. But as Darwin walks away crying, Gumball gets this feeling in his heart that Darwin is here. And so he runs outside where he then sees Darwin, and the two then run up to each other and hug, which was genuinely just so beautiful. And Richard then tells him to call him dad, and Nicole notices that his feet are dirty, and Gumball then gives him his shoes, and Darwin says that he'll never take them off. As they then get in the car and Nicole gives him a kiss, and Gumball and Darwin then fall asleep on each other and Nicole and Richard drive home. Just a proper episode showing how Gumball and Darwin came to be and how Darwin became a part of their family. The whole thing is just so wholesome. Easily one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. Another fan favorite episode is of course season 4 episode 38, The Fury, which begins with Nicole speeding through traffic trying to take her kids to school, as we really get to see how powerful and fast she really is. But then a girl in the shadow underneath a tree all of a sudden says that she's waited a long time for this before revealing herself, but then we quickly see that this is someone that Nicole knows, a woman named Yuki who apparently wants to fight her. But as the intensity is built up, making it seem like they were gonna fight, Nicole just says that she doesn't want any trouble, and Yuki tries to make her mad to get her to fight her, but she just walks off. Gumball, Darwin, and Anais then question this throughout their entire day, and then we see that Yuki destroyed their car. But they then go to the store and they quickly see that Nicole is sad. So Richard, being Richard, of course cheers her up really quickly and tries to ask her what's wrong, and she says nothing, but instead of trying to get the answers out of her, Richard just continues to try to make her happy. Actually just the goat. But then Yuki pulls up on them and Richard is instantly terrified, and then she starts trying to make a move on him to try to make Nicole jealous and fight her, but Nicole tells her that there's no point. Yuki then continues to try to make Nicole's life just a living hell and just ruining her day at work, and then when she comes home from work, just seeing her yard on fire. All of this of course confusing the kids, as they just didn't know what was going on between Nicole and this woman, before saying that they have history, as we then get this crazy backstory lore straight out of Dragon Ball, saying that the two trained together under Masami's grandpa, but as they entered a tournament, the two had to fight each other, which Nicole ended up winning, but sadly also lost her friend in the process. But I guess this whole time Yuki was training in Japan, all to fight Nicole again to regain her honor. They then tell Masami that Nicole's not gonna fight her, but then she says that she might not have a choice, as she gives them a letter, which they then give to her mom, and we quickly see that it pisses her off, as she says that she has some unfinished business to take care of. They then read the note, and we see that Yuki threatened to get Nicole fired, as well as make them lose the house if she doesn't fight. Really just stooping to the ultimate level, bro. But the animation style of the episode then changes to anime, as Nicole confronts Yuki and the fight begins, with the two's power being pretty equal, Yuki even using a straight up Rasengan and Nicole just tanking it. They then continue to fight, and Nicole eventually gets Yuki on her knees. But as Yuki gets scared, thinking that Nicole was gonna finish her off, Nicole reaches her hand out to lift her up, but Yuki gets mad, saying that she won't take her pity, and causes an explosion which then traps the kids. And so the two put their differences aside to save them. As the animation style goes back to normal, the two cry and apologize to each other and hug, as the kids are just utterly shocked at what the fuck just happened. This episode is straight peak. The anime animation was just sick, and seeing how strong Nicole really is was awesome. Season 5, Episode 6, The Choices. Gumball, Darwin, Anais, and Richard are all begging Nicole for food. And of course, being the absolute idiots they are, distract her, which causes a fire, leading Nicole to ask herself, where did she go wrong? Before saying that it all started with Richard, as we then get a flashback to Nicole's childhood, and we quickly see that she had terrible parents growing up, as they bring up her report card and she says that she got perfect A's, but they say not in gender, as she put F, obviously because she's a female, but they just say that being a girl is not an excuse. Like, they are actually stupid. And then they get in a car crash, and Nicole asks how much time she has, but then her mom just starts listing the amount of time until she graduates, until she gets her diploma from law school, and until she marries a doctor. Literally all they care about is her being successful. It's really sad. But Nicole then runs to go to her tournament, also running past a bunch of guys who want to ask her out or just try to get in her way. But then she realized that she was lost, but then also found Richard in a log. As we then flash back to the future, realizing that this was the moment that led her here, causing her to believe that if she had gone down any other different path, things might have ended up different. As we see, if she literally just went left instead of right, she would have beat the tournament, graduated school, got super rich, became president, and then literally like a tyrant ruler, but then also hated by everybody. She then imagines if she listened to Banana Bob's song, as we then see a future where her and him got married, as she slowly just goes insane. She then imagines listening to Tobias' dad, as we see them get married, and that he would have forced her to be just someone she isn't, and once again drove her insane. She imagines she'd listen to Mr. Small, but then she ends up dead. And even if she didn't step on the butterfly, she would have choked on it and once again died. As she listened to the robber guy and got a ride from him, she would have died as well. And all of this causes Nicole to realize that there was no other way around this. She was meeting Richard that day no matter what. This was destiny. Nicole then tells Richard that she has to go to her tournament, and Richard asks her why, and she says because she has to fight, and once again he asks her why, and that she has to be the best so people would like her, and once again he asks why, and then says that people already like her. And as she asks who, of course he starts blushing, which causes her to start blushing, which was really cute. The bell to the tournament then goes off, and Nicole realizes that it's too late and it's over, and that she has to go home empty-handed. And she starts crying, but Richard then gives her a nut to cheer her up, which was also really cute. She then asks him what she should do with her life, and he says that she should start living it, which was such a good response. This scene is like the perfect example that Richard is dumb but can be really mature and give really good advice out of nowhere, which is really impactful, which is why I honestly love his character so much. We then get to see the two story from this point to the future, with how they started dating, how Richard met their parents, and of course how they disapproved of him, how it resulted in Nicole leaving her parents' house, as well as Richard getting kicked out of his, yet how despite everything the two still supported each other, going from living in a crummy apartment to getting married and having a kid, to finally buying the house together, to seeing Gumball walk for the first time, just fully watching them blossom into these great parents that are so much better than theirs. And of course we then call back to the origins as Gumball meets Darwin, and then we see Anais get added to the family as well, as we see a nice family portrait of the family all together, causing Nicole to realize that she wouldn't change a thing. As we fully go back to the future, and instead of getting mad at them, she just starts laughing and starts a food fight with them, which was adorable. Genuinely, what a perfect episode and such a beautiful story. Honestly, probably my favorite episode of the entire series. But on to another one of my favorite episodes of the series, Season 6, Episode 6, titled The Father. In this episode, Frankie is invited to a party at the Watterson household for a supposed holiday called Vermin Man Day. And they then begin to sing the Vermin Man song, which is very obviously just about Frankie. And it's also then revealed that it was all made up by Richard's mom because she hates him for leaving Richard, which is very fair. But Frankie then apologizes, saying that there's nothing he can do to make up for what he did because simply he has missed too much, thinking that it's too late for their problems between one another to be fixed and or forgiven. We then see Richard very depressed, and no matter what, every attempt that Gumball, Darwin, and Anais do to cheer him up ends up failing, until Gumball gives him an actual pretty unexpectedly good mature talk about how he can't go back to the past and change things, but still can fix whatever's between them because there still is a future, and that future can start now. But everything that him and his father then do due to attempt to bond and create those memories that they missed out on having between one another is just more or less ruined in a way. As they play football, but then it turns out the ball was stolen, resulting in Richard to get fucking tackled by Penny's dad. And then Frankie gives him a supposed heirloom that has been passed down to him by his cellmate, meaning that it was stolen, before he runs away and Richard gets tackled by the cops. Or teaching him how to shave, but then revealing that they were in a house that they had broken into. And teaching him how to drive, but the car was of course a getaway car to a bank heist. Eventually Richard realized that it wasn't going how he imagined it, and it kinda actually did lead to the two opening up to one another, as Frankie calls himself the Vermin Man and that he didn't want Richard to turn out like him, and then tells him that he turned out great and that his kids love him, causing Richard to honestly have one of, if not his best moment in the series about his kids and how they made him into a better father, ending the story of Richard and his father in a beautiful way. It's honestly crazy how good this show can be with its storytelling sometimes, especially when it comes to these emotional-esque episodes and or arcs, which as is another ongoing arc throughout the series, which introduces this place called the Void and creates this really meta fourth wall breaking concept within the show that their world just isn't real or just isn't what it's made out to be, which is honestly one of Gumball's biggest reasons for being so popular and just one of the most loved parts about the show in general. And this all begins in the episode literally titled The Void. Gumball is cheering on Penny before her and the other cheerleaders seemingly explode.
Alright, I guess they didn't explode, but you have to admit that was...
making them believe a different outcome would have happened if someone else was there to help them. Mr. Smalls then appears, enabling and confirming their suspicions by mentioning he lost his van named Janice, and was only able to remember due to wearing a tinfoil hat, which leads Gumball and Darwin to believe that someone from their town was missing, before they start noticing strange signs like a missing locker in their school and even ghostly outlines of a person in old photos. Gumball and Darwin try to get the rest of the school to remember who this mysterious person who had just disappeared was, but nobody could. Mr. Small then gives the two a tinfoil hat and helps them find a photo which actually showed the missing person, which was a character named Molly from season 1 that had multiple appearances and voice lines. They then start to notice a line throughout the world and spots Molly's existence was seemingly cut from, which when open gives us the first glimpse of the Void, a place that would come up again and be extremely prominent in regards to the show's overall plot and story. They then find Molly in her treehouse and apologize for forgetting her, but she says that she just saw them yesterday, revealing that inside the Void, time doesn't pass. They then take Molly with them before passing by someone else who was also in the Void, a character known as Rob, who tries to wave at Gumball and Darwin and then manages to escape the Void by jumping onto their van as they're leaving. They then say that they have to tell everyone before the world makes them forget, and then instantly the Void sucks their tinfoil hats, which completely removes their memories of everything they had just witnessed. Then in the episode The Disaster, we saw Rob get his hands on a remote, which is actually able to interact and change the world with its buttons. And with this remote, he tries to ruin Gumball's life by making his parents get into a car crash, forcing him to tell Darwin that their parents had money problems due to adopting him, making his parents divorce, making him cheat on his girlfriend, and push her off the top floor of the mall, where Rob then pauses the remote, freezing everyone except himself and Gumball before opening the Void and throwing the remote inside of it. But Gumball jumps in to retrieve the remote and hits the rewind button before the episode just ends. In the next episode, Gumball is sent back to the beginning of the last episode, where he then begins to fight Rob and pushes him into the Void, but ends up going back in to save him, and so Rob decides to hit rewind in order to make everything go back to normal, realizing that Gumball isn't so bad after all. Rob then also destroys the remote in entirety, but he really shouldn't have. That would have been really useful in the finale. But in the episode The Future, Rob takes the role of the villain once again, as he kidnaps Banana Barbara and takes her to a warehouse to force her to paint the future. But as she just paints pictures of the Void, Rob continues to make her paint more drawings until eventually she draws a portal to Gumball and Darwin, showing that she could alter the paintings and therefore change the future. They then fight Rob and end up erasing him from the world once again, but Gumball asks her to bring Rob back, but she draws a picture of Rob falling into the Void, which we will see again. Gumball then says that they'll see Rob in the future, but afterward Banana Barbara says that there is no future, before the episode cuts to static, once again showing that the Void will be coming back and will seemingly be the cause of this world's end. In the last episode of Gumball, for the first time in the series, an actual human being appears as the supposed superintendent of Elmore High School, who sets out to remove the cartoonish nature of everyone by turning them into humans. But Gumball and Darwin quickly figure out how to turn them back, thus making the principal run away, but Banana Joe uses his peel to make him fall over, and we then find out that the supposed principal was actually Rob all along, who tries to explain that something was going to happen to Elmore, and this was his reasoning for trying to turn them into humans. But as he tries to explain what's apparently going to happen, he gets beaten up. The episode then ends, but we actually get a final cutscene after the credits showing Rob waking up after being knocked out. Rob then says that transformation is apparently the only chance they have at escaping to the other place, which I assume to be the real world before this one is destroyed. We then see the void crack open the ground beneath Rob, resulting in him to fall in, just like in the picture we saw Banana Barberjaw in the episode The Future, ending the series on a cliffhanger which would confuse everyone and leave them begging for more answers for the last 6 years. This episode is very widely debated on whether it's one of the best or one of the worst because of the whole human bit, as well as just being how the series ended, but also that it would potentially hype up the movie that was said to come. But now is also confirmed to be getting resolved in the next 20 episodes of the new series, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those episodes are some of the new best Gumball episodes. But with that said, that's going to be the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one, whatever that is.